Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Sword Art Online 2 episode review. This one's going to be for episode 2, Cold-Hearted Sniper. Once again, still don't have the light novel or the DVD set to show off, but I will probably more towards the end of the reviewing of this arc episodes. But, again, look, this was a good episode, but it shows off I suppose the different approach, the different style that this arc, and I suppose SAO II in general, has compared to the previous two arcs, in that it's something I know about the first episode, but there aren't really that many separate scenes in the sense of, fundamentally, like, the first episode was 3 separate scenes. This one, there's only like 4, which are Sinon at the very start, defeating that boss monster and getting her Hecate rifle. There's the second scene, which is the huge action scene that takes up the majority of the episode, which is the fight with Behemoth. There's the third scene, which is really quick, and that's just Asuda waking up in the real world. And then there's the fourth scene to end things, which is, just a little battle with Lifa, Silica, and Lisbeth, defeating a monster, and then Kirito about to tell Asuna what he's planning to do going into GGO. That whole situation. So a lot of setup, and a lot more than kind of, if you've just been watching up to now and you're really watching them one by one, you're not really used to this much setup. Because Sword Art Online in general has been a show it's very clear about what it's trying to do. It very much presents everything very clear, to the point, straight away. You're never left wondering, where exactly is this going? In that, I suppose the introduction of Sinon in this episode is actually a good example of that, in that they don't do her introduction in the kind of way you'd usually expect a kind of main character for this arc to be done, in that it's just this, there's not a lot of dialogue from her. She only has 1 or 2 lines in this whole episode, and not really much hint about where they're going with her as a character. It's just, okay, she's a sniper, she doesn't say much, and she's playing this game, and they do make it the idea of just like, there's not many girls in the game, so she has to deal with that, but she can handle the guys pretty well, and she's respected in the game as the best sniper. So she's been in the game for a while, has the respect of other players, and has this desire to just be the best and kind of prove herself to be good and not give up. She's got that kind of intensity and treating the world in a kind of a fairly realistic way. But beyond that, you don't get a lot about what her exact character is. The scene when Asuda wakes up in the real world gives you a hint as to what her arc is going to be, in that she wakes up, and I suppose because she's just been involved in all this gunfights and stuff like that, she's had this really intense moment, and she wakes up and her hand is kind of in the position like she's holding a gun, and it freaks her out a little bit. And you don't quite get it here, but you get the slight hint that, does she have a fear of guns, and is she trying to get over that by using Gun Gale Online to get past that? And you see those moments where, like, everyone else is panicking, but she's kind of calming herself down because she's been through more than this. And there's a specific moment in the fight where she kind of says it, that, like, I've been through worse than this, and nothing will ever be more intense than that day. And we'll get that in some upcoming episodes, what that is actually referring to, but it's just, she's been through something, and so even these intense moments in the game aren't enough to put her aim off or anything like that. She still maintains her role as the best sniper in the game. And, it's interesting that they devote so much time to basically an action scene, plus a little setup action scene to just set her up as a character. And at the end of the day, the reason I think they do this is because over the course of this arc, you don't actually get that much information about Gun Gale Online as a virtual world. Because it's a PvP and PvE game, but for the most part this arc focuses almost completely on the PvP aspect of it, player versus player. Whereas Sinon earned her weapon, the Hecate II, from PvE, defeating a monster, player versus enemies. So that's the section of this game you don't get a lot of information on. What exactly are the enemies in this game? It looks like kind of SAO ALO monsters, set in this kind of post-apocalyptic virtual game world. And I suppose that brings up the topic of GGO as a world. Very different than ALO and SAO, whereas we had SAO was standard swords, that's it, kind of fantasy setting in terms of the designs. You had the fairy inspired ALO with flying, swords, and magic. And now you have Gun Gale Online, which, as of now, as of this episode, we don't see any melee weapons. We see we see grenades, we see guns, and that sort of thing. There's a different variety of guns, snipers, machine guns, some energy weapons, and it's a not very bright game. It seems very post-apocalyptic. A lot of smoke everywhere, broken buildings. They're on a battlefield. It's a very different feeling, and you can sort of tell that the animators kind of really like the change up, having to draw a lot of weapons and bullets rather than sword the whole time. It was just a really interesting visual change, getting to know this world. But I think that's why they focused so much on this engagement, because they were primarily going to be focusing on these kind of one-on-one engagements for like the whole of this arc. They kind of had to just go, this is what a usual player versus player engagement looks like, and here's a hint as to what the PvE stuff is in the game. Because really that's probably the weakest part of this arc, is just that you don't get to know the world that well, but it's still interesting nonetheless to see the strategy of these fights, and they devote so much of the episode to this big action scene. That Sinon right at the moment is part of this kind of group that is a kind of player hunter kind of guild, that they specialize in taking down other groups of players to earn their kind of money experience that way. And in this way, they focus on taking out players who primarily focus on defeating the enemies of the game. So there's some cool strategy that they trust her. They kind of leave her up on top as the sniper. They go off to set up their kind of more close range ambush, and you just have the kind of setup that the leader of their group is kind of taking command, saying, no, I want this guy taken out first, and try and get that guy if you can. And it was just a very different fight than kind of anything we've had before in SAO, and it worked really well. And it's very different than even basically every other fight we get in SAO from here on out. Yeah, the main focus of the fight ends up being that their kind of attack goes awry when they realize that the player wearing a cloak actually has a minigun, which is this insanely powerful weapon, fully automatic, but it has a movement penalty. So he basically just stands still and just sprays the most powerful weapon in the game at them. And Sinon basically takes this as a challenge that, if she really wants to be the best, she is going to have to defeat this guy, whereas the rest of her team kind of backs off and they're kind of just happy with surviving, but she is really intent on taking him out. And it's just really interesting the way the thing goes, that like her position as a sniper kind of gets compromised, and she's forced into this kind of really high risk maneuver where she kind of jumps down, dodges his shots, and basically point blank snipes him in the head and gets the victory, but gets her kind of virtual avatar leg blown off in the process. It was a pretty cool sequence overall, and it gives you this idea of kind of, it's explained in later episodes, but the idea of how the game works, that like, how do players just know how to dodge bullets and guns? But no, when the gun is fired, you see basically a shot line, and you have a brief opportunity to kind of dodge it and stuff like that, and you see that here. Explained much better later on, but they just show it to you here, and just you can put some things together, which is pretty nice. But yeah, it's it's not massively important, this action scene, that they devote so much of the episode to. So in that sense, it's not the most important episode of the show, because realistically, they never refer back to this action scene at the start. It's important that she gets the Hecate too, because that's her kind of main weapon, sniper rifle. This scene was just to establish Sinon on her own, in action, in her element, before Kirito comes into play, and the two of them are kind of paired up as the main two characters of the arc. So in that sense, it was important to give her kind of basically an episode to just herself, how she plays the game on her own right now, and establish kind of what she's doing right now without just helping Kirito. So needed, but not massively important. The final scene to talk about is obviously the bit that we get in ALO, Alfheim Online. And we just start off with a kind of some references. Silica is fighting this kind of plant-like monster with the tentacles. It grabs her, turns her upside down, and she's still wearing armor that kind of flops down when she's upside down. So she's kind of covering up, and she's like, "But wait, no, I have wings. I can get out of this." But then the monster reveals that it also has wings, and she's in the same position again. It was just a nice little joke reference to what she was about. But this time, Silica also has a group of friends that she can rely on. As Leafa comes in, then Lisbeth comes in, and they take this thing out fairly easily. And then those three girls kind of get their victory, and they just kind of look up and they see Kirito and Asuna and Yui kind of interacting and having their family moment. And they just joke about how they're all over each other all day in school, in game, and obviously Lisbeth obviously is the one who kind of had a crush on Kirito. Sugaha, we dealt with the whole thing last arc with her feelings for her brother, and then Silica, I suppose, does think of him, I suppose, more as a big brother, but does also kind of have a crush on him as well. And they just kind of have to accept that Kirito and Asuna are together. But then they just kind of laugh about it, that like, yeah, they are together a bit too much. But anyway, they would just cut up to them, and basically what happens is just Kirito is about to tell Asuna that he's going into the game, and is it really a big cliffhanger? Is Asuna going to freak out that he's going to help people in this game investigate this thing? Maybe she's going to be concerned about him, but it's not that big of a deal to be worth having a full cliffhanger for. It definitely is a case of like, okay, I understand you're kind of stretching out the plot of the Phantom Bullet arc to fit a few more episodes than are kind of needed, but this is a little bit of a stretch to treat as like a full cliffhanger, that like this is that serious of a thing that he's going to investigate Death Gun in the game. And I suppose that it's kind of more up to the audience to really kind of consider how dangerous this actually is, and how big of an issue him telling her this is actually going to be. Like, do you really think that Death Gun is that big of a threat? But we'll see as we go on in the episode. So to sum things up, solid episode, really good action scene. But again, we're not focusing on too many scenes. You can tell that they've got not a massive amount of content to do for this arc, but the same number of episodes to fill in. So they're kind of stretching things out a lot, giving a lot of time to it. Whereas the first two arcs were extremely fast paced, that they were covering everything at lightning speed in like the first two arcs just to fit everything in. But they've got a bit of space to kind of do things with in this arc, so that's exciting. But definitely much better episodes to come in this arc coming up soon. But next Sword Art Online review will probably be Friday. Tomorrow I'm going to do an Avatar video, start a new Avatar series. Just a series of discussion videos. The first one will be tomorrow, and you'll see the topic tomorrow as well. So thanks for watching this video, and bye.